the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell, give 'em a hand, and let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets here, Rob, with another Mets pre-game show right here on the channel. Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, don't bring your kiddies, don't bring your wife, because the Braves are knocking the ball all over the fucking yard. It's an absolute joke. It's an absolute catastrophe. It's a shit show. It's not even a Mets pregame show. It's a Mets shit show. And that's exactly what you've seen over the last 2 days. I mean, you can basically have the amount of runners that the Mets left on base in these two games can basically start an army. That's how bad this Mets team has been offensively, pitching-wise. Again, we probably knew more about the pitching because of the fact of the trades, but my God, I mean, it's just constant frustration with this team, constant annoyance, constant who gives a fuck, because when you try to watch this game, stay loyal to this team. And I'm not saying to, watch inning 1 to inning 9, and I know some people did. I was out most of the day, but I caught the ending of the game, which was basically a complete waste of the game. But it's not easy to watch. It really is not easy to watch. And you know what? A bunch of millionaires, a bunch of egotistical players that clearly only care about themselves checked out. And that is the worst thing you can do as a Major League Baseball team. I don't care if you're the worst team in baseball. I don't care what your team did at the deadline. And it's not like the Mets were the only sellers when it came to the deadline. Why do they have to embarrass themselves? And this is not just the DJ Stewarts of the world or the Ortegas or the Almontes. It is all of them. It is the Alonsos. It is the McNeils. Nimmo is all of a sudden feeling something in his leg. And Francisco Lindor is something with his rib. But they're playing in the second game. So we'll see how that turns out. But, I mean, it's just constant. And this is why you respect the Braves in this situation. You say, Rob, why would you even do that? Because not only do they beat the Mets, they embarrass the Mets, and they like doing it. If you listen to it, Olsen went on a podcast a few days ago, and he talked about last year that they were so motivated to beat the Mets, not because just to beating them on the field and trying to win the division, because they couldn't watch the post-game, basically Frank the Tank going absolutely insane when the Mets lose. That was what their motivation was. It was basically off the field nonsense by that idiot that actually motivated them the most. Not trying to win the division, not trying to just beat the Mets on the field. No. They could not wait to watch Frank the Tank basically go out of his mind after a Mets loss, especially against the Braves. This is what it's come to. This is what it's come to. And oh, by the way, there was a lot of fans there. Again, this was a makeup game from earlier in the year. It's a summer Saturday. It's still baseball. Again, I still love going to baseball games. You know, I went to many Mets games where the Mets were absolutely garbage. And that was when they didn't trade anybody at a deadline and they were still garbage. So, yeah, I'm still going to games. I know tomorrow's my birthday. I was planning on going, but I got things to do, right? It's my birthday. People, I'm going places. I'm probably going to go out to dinner, I guess. I don't know. Who the hell knows, right? It's just frustrating because we can't even actually enjoy a season. And again, I can care less what anybody has to say when it comes to the trade deadline. If you thought the Mets shouldn't have been sellers, just look at the lack of leaders on this team. And this is and this is why, and again, this is the reason why when people went all crazy and got so emotional based off the trade deadline, this is what you've seen from players the entire year. Where was the lack of where is all this motivation? Where is this lack of interest in these games? And this goes back for months now. And you know what? You heard Salicata on WFAN the other day talking about, you know, he works for SNY. He knows a lot of people in the know, not just in the locker rooms, but also around the team. And he said it. There's something toxic going on in this clubhouse. And there's a problem in this clubhouse. And you can probably put many people. You can name somebody and they're probably part of the problem. It's got to get fixed. And, you know, production matters, absolutely. But you can't have the face of your franchise basically mope in the corner. Again, I'm going back to Alonso because he is the big key in this whole season in a nutshell, right? When he's going good, it's sunshine and rainbows. Everybody's happy. Oh, he always has positive things to say in the media when he's doing well. But when he's not doing well, where is it? And it goes back to the fact that we talked about this during the All-Star break, right? During the All-Star game, during the All-Star Home Run Derby. What was talked about the most on the network, on the TV? What were they talking about? That a lot of players around the league laugh at Pete Alonso. A lot of players around the league don't like Pete Alonso. They think he is full of it. They think that he's basically fake. He puts on a show just for the fans in basically every aspect other than the field. And again, there's not a lot of players that like Pete Alonso. And that's around the league. So I really don't know what it is about Pete Alonso that a lot of people don't like around the league, and that has to trickle down to the clubhouse. It's just my opinion. It really is just my opinion. And this has nothing to do with maybe trading him, maybe not trading him. I don't think the Mets are going to do that. I mean, they were doing their jobs. Why the hell not, right? Why not see what you can actually get back? But you know, I still believe the Mets are going to sign him, but you really have to think about, is this guy actually a leader of this team, right? Because there's a lot of guys that can hit 35, 40 home runs that are not leaders of a team. If Pete Alonso doesn't want to be a leader of the team, don't try to act like you are a leader. And then when things go bad and things are not going the way they're supposed to, you're supposed to step up in front of the media, not just on the field, in front of the media or in a clubhouse, have a closed door meeting, talk to the media in positive directions, like Francisco Lindor did after the trade deadline and talked about, I'm going to be here for a long time. I see what this team is trying to do. They're trying to have long-term success. and they made their decision, and I'm okay with it, right? Even if Lindor wasn't, he said it, right? I don't think Pete Alonso bitching and moaning. Oh, I don't know why I did that. I gotta speak to the owner. What? Stop it. Stop being a fucking baby. You make millions of dollars. Be a professional. Play the game of baseball. And if you want all the accolades, you want all the excitement, you want all the kids wearing your jerseys, you want to have big moments as a New York Met, and he has some, absolutely. But in the biggest moments, when he's failed, and you've seen it, as soon as he mopes and doesn't really do what he needs to do at the plate, he's a totally different person. He has two different personalities. He is completely bipolar when it comes to what he does on the field, And he takes it, and you heard it, and you saw it front and center. And this goes for Brandon Nimmo as well, and Jeff McNeil as well. Right? It's frustrating, and you really have to take a look. And if you don't think this core is the core to take you to the next level, then you got to make a change. It's very simple. It might not be popular. It might not be what people want, but it might have to be the case. That's it. It just is what it is. And okay, explosive, exactly. Back in 2019, Lindor wasn't on that team, right? Who was the three guys that were on that team? Nimmo, McNeil, Alonso. If it's still toxic and Baez is gone, and a guy like Lindor wasn't there in 2019, so where is that toxicity in this clubhouse coming from? It's got to be coming from somebody who was there already. We talked about the toxic clubhouse in 2019. So who is it? Right? Well, Patrick, yeah, we love talking about the problems. And again, it's not my job to fix the problem. It's the clubhouse. It's the owner. It is the GM. That's the one that has to fix it. But you know what? There's a reason why Pete Alonso was put on the trade block. Maybe Pete Alonso is the problem. How about that? And you could say all you want. You could say all you want about Pete Alonso's production. You know what? If you got to pay Pete Alonso $28 to $30 million for 6, 7, 8 years, find me two guys that bat 260 and hit 20 home runs, and there's your production that you get from one player. If he's that much of a problem in the clubhouse, and he puts on a show for the media and makes Mets fans love him based on the LFGMs and the Donnie Diesel stuff and all that crazy nonsense, and people and players around the league don't even like him, how do you think the clubhouse feels? Maybe Pete Alonso is the problem all along, right? You want to give the individual accolades. Great. He had a great rookie season. It was fun to watch. But when it's not about him individually, where is the leadership? Where is the guy that is supposed to put this team on his back? Because I have not seen that. 2019, he didn't have to put anybody on his back except for himself, right? The Mets were out of it. So what was he doing? He was padding his stats. Let's go for that rookie home run record. It was great to see. It was nice to see as a fan. I was there at the last couple of games, last 2 weeks of the season. I was there almost every game at Citi Field watching to see if he got that home run thing because I'm a fan. I like to have my player that's wearing a Mets jersey have those type of records. That's fun. Cy Youngs, stuff like that. It's perfect and it's great. It's a lot of fun with that. But no, Patrick, okay. Nearly died last spring. Okay, that's fine. But that has nothing to do with the on-field situation, right? If that's affecting him so much, don't play baseball. I don't know what to tell you. All right? You know, there's people that's been in car accidents that have to go to a 9-to-5 job making $60,000 a year. All right? So it's a shitty situation, and we all thank God he's okay. But, I mean, come on. What is that? What is that respect? I'm not talking about him personally. as a person outside of the clubhouse, outside of the ballpark, or anything like that. I'm talking about him being a leader on the field. Okay, Patrick, if I'm a clown, leave. I'm not keeping you here. You don't have to stay. All right? It's not about him dying. That was scary shit. But he is okay. He is okay. Right? Luckily, the truck that he had, the seatbelt that he was wearing, he was lucky. But what does that have to do with anything on the field? If that's something that's going to affect him the rest of his life, then I can understand that. But you also have to do certain things as a Major League Baseball player. The team is paying you to put up stats. If you're going to be, quote unquote, the leader of this team that everybody assumes you should be, and he feels like that, you hear him talk. Anytime when anything's going wrong or anything's going good, the first person they speak to is Pete Alonso. That means you are the guy. You are the leader of this team. You want to call him the captain? Whatever. I don't care about the captain situation. That don't matter to me. But being a leader of this team, putting the team on your back when they need you the most, right? You don't go to the media and wonder why at the deadline they did what they did. Because you have to look at yourself in the mirror at some point. Like, literally, Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, and Brandon Nimmo act like they didn't play like shit for the majority of the year and act like this came out of nowhere. When Steve Cohen, in the middle of June, said to you, I'm not firing the manager. I'm not firing the GM. It is on the players at this point, but the players have an opportunity to show me something, or the organization has to make a decision at some point closer to the deadline. He told you that. If you didn't want to listen, that's on you. Okay, Dwight, that's fine. He can't do his job then, but look at his stats. Then why is he hitting 40-plus home runs and 120 RBIs? If it's affected him so much, right? It didn't affect him last year, right? Nobody talked about the car accident last year. Now we're going to talk about the car accident this year? How does that make sense? Yeah, and again, it goes back to the same thing, right? Lindor, I was shocked that he was the one person on the media that actually acted like a leader in that clubhouse and towards the media, and said it outwardly. Well, Dwight, but the point is, he was fine last year. He had a great year last year. You can't bring up the car accident this year and not bring it up last year. Because what was the problem last year? He was perfectly fine last year. But Jesse, that's the problem. It didn't feel like the Mets, especially a guy like Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, are taking responsibility, because they act like the Mets did this while they were having a great year. Like, Steve Cohen was like, you know what? This team's 10 games over 500. They're in a playoff spot, but you know what? I'm going to trade all these guys anyway. No. Steve Cohen warned the players, do your job, make a run, and I won't do something at the deadline that's going to break up this team. Nobody stepped up. Why was the only one Verlander and Senga? Right? Where is Pete Alonso from the 1st of May all the way until the middle of June, almost to the end of June? So 2 months, Pete Alonso was basically dog shit, along with a lot of other guys. He's not the only one. But you're going to be the first one to blame because you want to be the center of attention. You want to be the first person the media goes to, win or lose, but you don't want to take the majority of the blame. Leaders take all the blame, right? Always. Always. You can't get all the credit when things are going well, but when things are going bad, you're going to brush off the criticism. Everybody's going to point to the leader. It's your fault. Of course it's everybody else's fault. It's a team sport. But you got to be better than that. Because it goes back to the thing we talked about last year in the final month, right? When Marte went down, there was enough guys on that team that were having career years that could have stepped up and did their job. Nobody did. And the one guy you look to is the guy who had 40-plus home runs and 120 RBIs. That's Pete Alonso, right? Yeah, those stats are great, but his numbers weren't very good, along with a lot of other guys. But you can't have one guy like Marte out of your lineup and you completely do a total 180 offensively, because that was the big reason why the Mets didn't win enough games in September, was basically their offense, because the pitching was pretty good. Jojo, I don't know when we get return Alonso. Again, it's not the fact of worrying about should we trade him or should we not, right? That's going to be up to your organization. The organization, Steve Cohen, Billy Epler, those guys know exactly what's going on in the clubhouse. They're not going to tell you straight out, Pete Alonso's the problem, the toxic problem in the clubhouse. Oh, and here comes Shay. See, even Shay believes it, right, Shay? I think I was making too much noise. And that is the problem you have to look at. Again, if there's a problem in the clubhouse, because again, we talked about this toxic stuff in 2019. We all blame Luis Rojas for not being a leader. You know, you're not going to put Pete Alonso in a situation as a rookie and say, here you go, kid, be a leader, right? You're not going to do that. So we blame Luis Rojas, we blame Mickey Callaway, right? He wasn't a leader. He was a joke, right? Remember, didn't the Mets start 11-1 in that season? Played extremely well until they didn't, right? So if the toxic conversation came up, there's 3 guys on that team right now that were on that team in 2019. So who is the problem? It's got to be one of those 3 guys or more of those guys. If it is Jeff McNeil and Pete Alonso, you got to figure it out. If they're always clashing, I don't know what to tell you. You got to change. You got to make changes. Well, yeah, Jesse. See, I think, and what's even more frustrating is that Nimmo, McNeil, Alonso, these guys basically work their way up through the minor league system. Not really completely together, but they interacted with each other in the minor leagues. Again, even Olsen and Swanson talked about this with Steve Gelbs in regards to the Braves organization, right? A lot of these guys, they came up through the minor league system together. So when they got to the major leagues, they already knew each other. And that was the big reason why they made Brian Snitker the manager, because he was basically a career minor league coach, manager. And they thought, well, if all these kids are coming up together, why don't we have a guy that all of them know and have managed before, or at least most of them? It was the perfect storm for the Braves. It worked out perfectly, right? But again, we go back to 2019. Nimmo, McNeil, Alonso, those were the guys on the team. If we talked about the toxic problem in the clubhouse in 2019 and we all ran to the manager and says, oh, it's Mickey Callaway's fault, and then in 2020 and 2021, all of a sudden, oh, let's not blame nobody. Let's blame Luis Rojas because he's an idiot manager and couldn't do his job and didn't control the clubhouse. We all blame the managers, right? And then all of a sudden, here we are in 2023, and we're back to the toxic level. So when things are going well, like 2022, everybody's on their best behavior, right? Right? Like I said, right? Oh, Nimmo's going for a contract, so you know Nimmo's not going to say nothing stupid. But it was a good season. There was not much negativity until the final couple of weeks of the season. So it was hard to judge their basically mental state until you got to the Braves series. You've seen exactly what these guys were. The main guys, the Nimmo contract that he gave 8 years to. You knew what this guy was going to be, right? Did Nimmo get overpaid? Yeah, absolutely. But who isn't nowadays, right? Pete Alonso is probably looking for a massive contract. We all know that. Massive extension, right? Jeff McNeil got a nice, comfy 4-year deal. And I'm going to go back to Salicata. No matter what you believe about Salicata, and, you know, he's crazy, and, you know, the NL East is over, nonsense that he said last year, right? He works for SNY. He knows a lot of the beat reporters that are in the clubhouse every single day. And he knows people within the organization. Right? He knows people within the organization. Yeah, committee. But again, he is a bad manager. But that doesn't mean that Rojas, right? We went to 2021. And the reason why we thought that Lindor and Baez was, basically doing whatever they wanted, and it was because of Luis Rojas. We blame Callaway and we blame Rojas. We never blame the players for a toxic clubhouse. We thought there needed to be a leader, and that was why everybody thought, wow, Buck Showalter, look what he did. He came in, he sat down McNeil and Lindor, fixed whatever problem they were having, and then we had a great year until we didn't. And then it reverted right back to what was the problem in the beginning, and it's the toxic clubhouse. So if it's 2019 that was toxic, 2021 that was toxic, and now 2023 that's toxic, all in losing seasons that didn't involve the playoffs, what does that tell you? That there's three guys. Yeah, Lindor is here for 2021, but all those other years, Pete Alonso, McNeil, and Nimmo were front and center. Right? So are we going to say, oh, it's Buck's fault again? Are we going to blame the manager again and then roll with the same core? You better make sure that this core is the core you think going forward, because you can't have Nimmo here for 8 years and Alonso here for 6 to 8 years and McNeil for 4 years and Lindor for another 8 years and make that your core, and there's a problem between these guys and causing problems within the clubhouse, no matter who it is. If it's multiple guys, I don't know if you can get rid of multiple guys, but it clearly, the New York Mets organization, the people who are in the know inside the clubhouse that see them every day, they got to believe that somebody is actually the problem. If it's not one, it's multiple. I'm not saying to get rid of all of them, but if there's, like, again, we're talking about Alonso here because of the fact he's coming up on an extension or a possible extension and have 1 year left on his deal, right? It's very telling when things go wrong in a season, Pete Alonso is nowhere to be found through the media and on the field, right? We talked about, that's all I heard in 2021 after the 2021 season. Oh, Lindor in the last part of the season padded his stats. When the season was basically over, that's when his numbers started to go up. What about Pete Alonso? He didn't pad his stats. He's not going to pad his stats this year, or pad his stats in 2019, or pad his stats in 2021. Again, I love Pete Alonso. I love the quirkiness and the weirdness of him, but we heard rumors about players around the league who don't like Pete Alonso, who thinks he's fake, he's full of it. He takes the home run derby to a whole new level where he takes it more serious than it seems like the season, right? And again, Met fans think it's funny, it's cute and everything like that. And then you really think about it, how true is that? And I'm not saying Pete Alonso doesn't care, but when does he care? Because he clearly checked out, right? Pete Alonso always beats up the Cubs. In his career, he beats them up to oblivion. But again, where is the guy? Yeah, winning helps the club, but that's what I'm saying. Winning masks the problems in the clubhouse, because nobody's going to go out and cause problems in the clubhouse, in a winning clubhouse, because you're going to look like a fool. And nobody's going to bring up something in front of the media while you're winning. Nobody's going to do that. But when you're losing and you're getting frustrated, now the real person comes out. And you saw it with three of the guys that I've been talking about, Nimmo, McNeil, and Alonso. Each one of them had even something more stupid to say to the media after the deadline. Nimmo lost sleep. He couldn't sleep after the deadline, which is the biggest joke I can ever hear. Honestly. Like, great. Nimmo, why didn't you get no sleep when your team was one of the worst teams in baseball in June and basically ended your season? That's when you're supposed to lose sleep. Like Met fans who were frustrated and would stay up and watch your lousy play, right? And it's the entire team. Let's not make it just one player. It's not just about one player, but you got to focus on the guys who are looking like they're going to be here a very long time. Because if they're the problem, what can you do? Just keep on rolling out the same core? That is the problem? Because that's not going to work, no matter who the hell you bring in here. And that is the biggest problem. Yeah, committee, I don't want to hear about the injury because when did he get hit? What day, what month did he get hit? What was it, almost the end of June? Middle of June? What about May 1st? About almost a month and a half before he got hit? Because he was hitting just as bad. Yeah, the wrist probably didn't help the situation, but it's not like he was raking all from April and May until he got hit. He wasn't. From May 1st all the way until the end of June, the guy was hitting basically under 200. Can we stop talking about the injury? Because that was basically what, in June when that happened? Well, Nimmo is what Nimmo is. This is what Nimmo is. The problem is, I think Nimmo's another one that completely, I just don't understand his play. These guys are professional ball players. When things work, why are you changing it? Once you get into the batter's box, all that analytical bullshit, all the stuff that the coaches give you, if you don't want to use it, you can take it, you can put it in your locker, but when you step into the plate, why are you putting that in your mind when you know last year you didn't use half that stuff, but you're going to take it to the plate in your mind at this point? It makes no sense. Yeah, we might be a poverty franchise, but you know what? We didn't actually win a bullshit World Series. Come on, Dodger fans. Come on, really? I give the Braves a hell of a lot more respect than the Dodgers, right? You've basically choked every year except for a 60-game season. So you switch to the Dodgers. Okay. See, I know who you are. I know exactly who you are, President. See, you shouldn't do that because you're a complete front runner and a bandwagon fan. Sorry. And that's what you are. I know you. I believe you were the one that texted me or messaged me on the channel a couple of times that you can't be a Mets fan anymore. Well, it's funny because nobody cared about being a Mets fan when the Wilpons owned this team, when the owners did not give a shit about this team or the fans, and now people are going to jump shit. Again, guys, if this ever turns around and the Mets win a World Series, don't jump on the bandwagon because you are not welcome. I'm so sick of those type of fans. I'm so sick of those fans. Again, you're going to an organization that didn't win since 1988, right? They won a 60-game season. If you want to raise your banner for that, go ahead. Because we all know it was a bullshit. Nobody cares about those stats in 2020, right? Dominic Smith and Luke Voigt had basically MVP seasons. How are they doing right now? Luke Voigt can't get in the majors. Dominic Smith is hanging out for dear life for the Nationals. Yeah, okay. And every one of them were what? Before? When was the last time they won before 88? President, don't say you guys. You were a part of that. Again, you jumped ship. Again, you're a front runner. You're a bandwagon. That's fine. But don't bring that bullshit to the channel anymore. Go to a Dodger channel because you're acting like Yankee fans. That's exactly what you are. You're acting just like Yankee fans. I mean, come on, guys. You can be frustrated with this team. We all are. Yeah, I mean, again, President was the one that was here all this time acting like a Met fan when he was a fake one, and that's fine. You can go root for your Dodgers. They're not going to win anything, I tell you that, because they choke just as badly as, let's be honest, the 90 Braves, right? They win division after division after division, and they choke every year in the playoffs because Dave Roberts isn't a good manager, right? Come on. Could we actually talk about the other team? Right? When the Dodgers changed ownership, if you pay attention to what Steve Cohen doing, is exactly what the Dodgers ownership group did. Exactly the same. They bought a bunch of veterans to try to get the fan base a little pumped up because there's a new owner. They got a couple of veterans, right? They spent a ton of money on veterans to build up their farm system. They never won anything. They built up their farm system. They made a couple of trades, got a little bit younger, bring up a couple of the kids, made that big trade with Mookie Betts, and then everything started to trickle down and start working out with the Dodgers, right? Go figure. A real season, the last 2 seasons, and the Dodgers didn't win. They didn't get to the World Series again because they choked again, right? You can't beat me down as a fan of another team more than the Mets beat myself down. So you can talk about the poverty franchise. You can talk about the LOL Mets. Nothing's going to hurt me more than the Mets. I'm sorry. It goes back to the same thing. Again, if you're a fan of that team, if you're a fan of the Dodgers, you can wear the T-shirts. You can wave the banners. But we all know what it is. People don't use the 2020 stats. Because Met fans went absolutely apeshit about Dominic Smith like he was the best thing since sliced bread after the 2020 season. I mean, what is he has in the last 3 years? Like 4 home runs? Luke Voit is a minor leaguer, and he had a great season in 2020. Come on, guys. The fact of the matter is that you're upset because the players that you supposedly love, you know, the leaders of your team, the core of your team, absolutely shit the bed. That's why. And you're mad because ownership had a plan and you don't like it. But if it works out 3 years from now, because what Steve Cohen is doing now is exactly what the Dodgers did once the new ownership group took over. Right? Look at the couple of years when they bought a ton of veterans from free agency, making some big trades to bring in veterans. They didn't really win anything. Built up their farm system. Started bringing those guys up. And then make the big trade when it was available. Like Mookie Betts. Right? The Mets should have been all over Mookie Betts. You know why they weren't in on Mookie Betts? Because Jeff and Fred Wilpon were still the owners of the Mets. Because they were afraid of their shadow. They were scared to spend their own money, but they had no problem spending money that they were stealing from the Madoff Ponzi scheme. When it wasn't their money, they didn't care they were putting money in because even though they spent it stupidly, they spent other people's money, not their own. Once it had to come out of their pocket, it became a problem. So everybody was like, "Oh, let's bring back the Wilpons." Well, great. I hope you want to live in that situation because that was an absolute disaster. Yeah, and he said it. Again, why is that? This is what I don't understand. People don't want to listen, but they want to complain. The owner of the Mets spoke to you in June. He told you what he was going to do if this didn't turn around. And then people are shocked by it because you don't want to listen and act like this came out of nowhere when it absolutely didn't. And that goes for people on WFAN. That goes people that were mad that they traded certain players. What were they supposed to do? Go for it? Because this team couldn't get out of their own way even if they actually tried. When the offense was doing well, the pitching sucked. When the pitching sucked, the offense was doing well. They never got on the same page. And if you thought they were going to be buyers, even if they decided to be buyers, they might have got some bullpen help. They weren't going to do much more than that because obviously they were not trading their prospects. But guess what? Now that you got all this organizational depth from the trades you made, Now, going into this offseason, the Mets, if a trade for like a guy like Corbin Burnes or another pitcher or somebody else that becomes available, the Mets have the depth to make those type of trades because they're not afraid to giving up their couple of top prospects, and now your farm system's in the gutter again. You can give up one or two prospects, possibly even three, and still have one of the better farm systems in baseball still. That's what the Dodgers did. You know, Steve Cohen talked about that. The Dodgers did exactly that. The Dodgers weren't making a lot of stupid trades. They weren't trading all their prospects away just yet when they didn't have a big farm system yet. Once they established their farm system and had enough organizational depth, that's when they made the big trades. That's when they made the big signings. Because they knew if the guys that they didn't believe in prospect-wise, or if they did, they knew that they can afford to lose them and put them in a trade because the guys that they brought up from the farm that are helping this team, that guy, Mookie Betts, they don't mind trading Verdugo and all those other guys that they needed to trade to get Mookie Betts. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Yeah, again, I don't think so because I don't think the Brewers are going to do that for 1 year, to be honest with you. I don't think so because they're not going to sign Pete Alonso, so they're not going to do that for 1 year. What the Brewers want young, controllable players. Pete Alonso's not that. Now, he's in the prime of his career, but he's going to be a rental. So you're not going to give one of the better pitchers in baseball in Burnes. And, of course, other people got to be in there, but I don't think that's going to happen like that. You know, and again, right wing, that's a great point. Yeah, they have a potential to be a playoff team, absolutely, because everybody has played. They underperformed this year, right? Is Pete Alonso a bad player? Is he a terrible player? Is this the player he is? Probably not, because if you look at his career, he's a lot better player than what he's shown. Jeff McNeil, same thing. Brandon Nimmo, same thing. Francisco Lindor, same thing. So if they underperformed and the players that nobody wants to get rid of, the guys I just mentioned, are not having the numbers they put up basically in their career, then why do you think that same players can't have the years like they've had for the majority of their career in the back of the baseball card? So if you believe they are the guys that they've shown the entire career, then why can't they turn it around? Why can't they just go into being – because look at the teams in the wild card. The third wild card team is going to be a few games over 500 probably. Not much more than that. That's all the Mets have to be. I'm going to look at the standings right now, but I'm just curious to look at. Let's see. Like, as bad as the Mets are, ever since the trade deadline, they basically lost a game and a half in the standings in the wild card. It's crazy to me. Look, the third wild card team is 5 games over 500, and that's the Cubs right now. Everybody else is 4 games over 500. That's it. Again, there's 48 games left, right? If these teams are playing like they have been playing basically the entire season and basically bring out the stretch of a few games over 500, and I said it before, 87 wins will easily get you into the wild card. It might not even be 87 wins. It might be 85. That's all it has to be. It's crazy. Yeah, and Rocky, and the New York Mets, what they did in a year and a half by drafting and doing what they did at this trade deadline, basically rebuild like a team like that rebuilds takes 3 to 5 years to rebuild their organization, right? That's usually what a rebuild is, right? We see it all the time around baseball with these low budget teams, all the time. They rebuild 3 to 5 years. They have terrible seasons for a few years in a row, get top draft picks over and over and over again, and then they bring up the kids and then pray that they're good. In the Mets situation, they're not relying on every prospect to come up, right? If you believe in its core, then you don't need that much. If you believe this, all the core of the team, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, had underperformed this year and not performed to what their levels are, even though I can tell you that Brandon Nimmo is having a year like he had his entire career, and last year was an anomaly, which was his best season. Go figure, in a contract year, right? But you could do a lot worse than Brandon Nimmo. That's obvious. But if you believe in his core and that they underperformed this year, then next year they should be able to play the back of their baseball cards like they've done their entire career. If they do that, then Alonso's going to hit 260. McNeil's going to hit 300. Lindor's going to hit 250. Nimmo's going to bat 260 and lower his strikeouts, have better on-base percentage like you've seen last year, if that's the case. And that's the thing you're going to be running into. You have to really figure out if this is the core you're going to go the war with. Because you can't sign Alonso to an 8-year deal, and we're going to still hear problems about a toxic clubhouse. And now you have Lindor, Nimmo, and Alonso here for basically almost a decade, along with McNeil for about 4 years. If it's going to continue, why is it going to change if it's those guys that are the problem? President's funny. You know, the fake Met fan that's a fake Dodger fan now. It's all right, President. When the Dodgers choke, because they always do in a real season, Dave Roberts is going to make a terrible decision, as always. And guys who don't do well in the playoffs, that always come up small in the playoffs, will happen again. Again, the Dodgers have great seasons almost basically ever since they changed the ownership group up. Ever since they got their farm system up, Steve Cohen and the Mets are doing exactly what the Dodgers are doing. It's very similar. A little different way of doing it, but it's very similar. Build up through the draft, build your farm system, sign a lot of veterans. The Dodgers did that. Go back from 2017 all the way until now, when basically they had their established team, right? The Dodgers did not re-sign Seager. You know, it's crazy, right? They didn't re-sign that guy. They let Justin Turner go. They didn't skip a beat. But they also didn't have to worry about anybody in their division. The Diamondbacks came back down to earth. The Padres are a shit show just like the Mets. So the Dodgers, many years in a row, haven't had to worry about anybody except for probably one team, maybe. And before it was the Padres, it was the Giants. Well, I don't know about bringing up young pitchers because, I mean, technically, you would think Mike Vasil would get an opportunity to make this rotation in spring. You know, Blade Tidwell has been pitching extremely well in Double-A. He'll probably get an invite to spring training. If he pitches well, maybe. But again, when you get into spring training, you're going to see what the Mets did in free agency or via trade to bring guys into the rotation. Until we see that, we don't know if these young guys are going to be a part of the rotation, because if you make enough deals, if you get a pitcher in a trade and sign a couple of pitchers, you might not need those guys just yet. You might need them as depth pieces because injuries happen, but you don't know yet until the offseason's over. Until you see what the rotation looks like when spring training happens. Like if the Mets sign, say if the Mets trade for Corbin Burns and sign Lucas Giolito and Aaron Nola. Just say that. Right? Corbin Burns, Sanger is your 1-2. You got Lucas Giolito and Nola your 3-4. And then you have the fifth spot that you have people battle it out. Vazel, Tidwell, McGill, Peterson, or you just put Quintana in there and you leave the rest of them in the minors. Right? Because if you notice something about specifically the teams in the National League, have you looked at the ERAs of the Braves pitchers? I know they have a lot of injuries, but it's not like they pitched well. Right? A lot of these, again, look at the rotations around the National League. Even division winners. The Braves are running away with the NL East. They haven't pitched well this year. Right? The Phillies really haven't pitched well this year. Look at the ERAs. Everybody's talking about Taijuan Walker. He has basically a 4 ERA. Right? But what has shown up for those teams? Their offense. The Mets were too inconsistent offensively to ever help the pitching out when they needed it. The Braves and the Phillies have the offense that are consistent enough to pick up their pitchers almost every single time. But BK, you can't say that though, because there's rotations in baseball that are not that good, and they're in playoff spots or right near where the playoff spots are. Basically it. Well, Sam, yeah, but the Mets spend in 2022 and they made the playoffs. Again, there's a lot of guys that underperformed this year. A lot of them. And most of them were offensively. If you think but we're not rebuilding. How are we rebuilding when the core of this team is still here? Verlander, Scherzer, Robertson are not the core. The guys are 37-year-old and older. That's not rebuilding. Can we stop that rebuilding nonsense? That's not rebuilding. If we traded Alonso, traded Nimmo, traded McNeil, one of those guys, that's rebuilding. You still have the core of this team with Alvarez if you even want to throw him in there. So how much do you really have to fill? Yeah, okay, what holes though? I'm curious. The rotation had holes this offseason too, and they filled the rotation with Quintana and Verlander, right? People were bitching and moaning that they didn't want to trade Verlander, so he was clearly figuring it out. Quintana, ever since he came back, has been solid. So if you got Quintana, yes, PK, I do believe that, because look at their career stats. These are not guys that are 36 years old that you can say, well, they were good 6 years ago. Pete Alonso was good last year. Jeff McNeil was good last year. Brandon Nimmo was really good last year. Francisco Lindor was really good last year. And if you look at their career numbers, look at Lindor since he's been a Met. Right? In 2021, he had a terrible season except for the last 2 months. 2022, a great year. Even this year, he's having a pretty decent season besides the average, and you want that on-base percentage to be up a little bit more, but they're underperforming to what their numbers usually say. No, Philip. If you pick a new baseball team, you're a front runner and a bandwagon fan. If you want to be a bandwagon fan, I've said this many times on my channel, go to another channel. You are not welcome here. Because when things are good, the same people that don't go to games, the same people who probably root for the Yankees are all of a sudden putting Mets hats on. Let me ask you something, guys. Let me ask you something. In 2015, you couldn't walk down the street of Manhattan without seeing a Met hat in 2015 later in the season. Usually you always see Yankee hats. So you're going to tell me all those fans are all of a sudden Met fans? Come on. Let's be honest. Yeah, PK, because they've done that many years in a row. I'm sorry. Look at their careers. And I'm talking about their Met careers. That's including Lindor. They've had really good seasons. And even as bad as the Mets are, because the teams in the National League aren't very good, because they're not. Let's be honest. Look at the National League. 85 wins is probably going to get a third wild card. 85 wins. That's 4 games over 500. 4 games. Because the team that's leading right now is the Chicago Cubs at 61-56. Do the math. 5 games over 500. There's what? What do they have? Let's see. They got 45 games left. If they go 25-20, that's 86 wins. BK, I agree with you. But look at the free agent market. Where's the power coming from? Last year, there was no power on this team. You know what they did? They played situational baseball. They got the big hit. They moved the runner over. They got the sac fly. They were getting a ton of 2-out RBIs. That's the difference. It's not the home runs. Could we get off that, please? Because the Mets are hitting more home runs this year than they did last year. Why are they so bad? Could we stop with the power? Because it's not all about power. Yeah, the rules are different now. But the Mets hit more home runs now than they did last year. So why are they so bad this year? Oh, and by the way, they got more stolen bases than last year with the different rules. Well, Philip, didn't you say you're leaving? You told people to pick another team. So I'm assuming you want to pick another team. Again, this is year 3 of Steve Cohen. 2021 was kind of not his fault because it was still all the Wilpons nonsense and players. Steve Cohen, right, did what he had to do. Okay, the bases are bigger. Congratulations. And the bases are bigger. It's not the reason why for stolen bases. The reason why for stolen bases is because the pitchers can only throw over 3 times. That's it. That's the reason why. It's not the bigger bases. I think that's nonsense. It's about the throwing over. Because a guy like Taijuan Walker, who has one of the best pickoffs in baseball, can't use that to his advantage much because of that rule. Well, Rocky, that's not true because the Mets had pitching last year. They had one of the best rotations in baseball last year. How far did that get them? Again, I went back about a week and a half ago, and I went over the pitching matchups in the World Series. One pitcher went 7 innings. One. Most of them went 5. So how important is the starting rotation? Because, again, I want you to go back right now. I want you to go right now, Google the rotations for the Phillies, who are leading the number 1 wild card, to the second team, to the third team, and every other team in front of the Mets in the wild card. Just look at all the teams and tell me what rotation you said that you're scared of. Because none of them are very good. None of them. The Braves are having a down season in a rotation. They're not having a good season pitching-wise. They had a lot of injuries, but even the guys that actually pitched, like Spencer Strider, who has a 3.5 ERA, a guy who people considered better than DeGrom, right? He strikes out the world, but he's a guy that basically blows up in certain innings, right? And I know last year I believe he was hurt, but he pitched, so there's no excuses. He got rocked in the playoffs. Yeah, okay, Frank, but that was 1969. 99, pitching mattered. Again, the Mets for the last 2 seasons, right? All they talked about, don't get this team in a short series. You don't want to face DeGrom and Scherzer. Ooh, what happened? Scherzer couldn't get out of the 4th inning. DeGrom pitched okay, and Bassett was nowhere to be found. No, I agree. Strider, it's his 2nd season. I agree. He's got nasty stuff, but that nasty stuff doesn't just make you a great pitcher. Yeah, free too. I understand that. But again, availability matters, right, for a player. That's what I talk about that all the time. People like to shit on Lindor, but Lindor's out there every single day. Alonso is out there every single day. Those guys are out there every single day. Sometimes I think they need a break sometimes. But you heard Swanson, when the Mets faced the Cubs, he talked about they instilled in the Braves organization, in the minor league system, to play every day. The Braves have 4 more guys that have played every game this year. There's not many teams that do that. PK, the second half was fine. September was the problem. But Scott, this year, yeah, I blame the offense, though. I said they were too inconsistent. When the pitching was doing well, the offense didn't show up. They were inconsistent. But for the first month and a half, the offense was actually pretty good. You know what the problem was the first month and a half that basically started the downfall? A Mets pitcher did not go 6 innings or more until the middle of May. That's a problem. But PK, you could do that, but all you're gonna do is if a guy like Tidwell or Mike Vazo, who's in AAA, or Tidwell's in AA, you bring up those guys and they get rocked. You're gonna destroy their confidence. You don't need to do that. There's no point in seeing them right now. You got spring training next year to see them. No, Joe, money isn't the answer to everything. It isn't. But I bring this up again. When was the last time a team won the World Series and wasn't in the top 10 in payroll? I want you to go back and look. It's been a very long time. And don't tell me the 2015 Royals, because they were number 9 in payroll. They spent money that year, and they added on payroll at the trade deadline. So it wasn't them. Teams that win the World Series are usually top 10 in payroll. The Braves, 2021, they were 9. They were in the top 10. This year, they're in the top 10 if they win it. Until a team that has like a payroll like the Rays or the Orioles win a World Series, don't talk about teams like that, because those are the teams that they might have a good season, like the Rays. They have a good season. They find a way to contend for the AL East, play decent in the playoffs, but and again, don't bring up 2020. I killed the Dodgers. Don't bring up the Rays in the World Series. Yeah, but PK, again, I'd rather see bring up Ronnie Mauricio instead. All right, I don't want to see Mike Vazo, who probably is not ready yet, or Blake Tidwell. You don't do that. Thank God for the Jets. Yeah. So you're going to be pissed off about the Mets, but the Jets, who's been just as bad as a shit show, and oh, by the way, haven't won since '69. By the way, right? I mean, come on, Jet fans. Can you win a regular season game before you start talking about a preseason game that don't matter? Come on, guys. All right, Sam, but he spent a lot last year too. All right? Cohen had to spend. If you didn't think he had to spend, you're not paying attention to the Mets roster. The Mets had no farm system. There was nobody coming up the pipeline to help this team out where it was needed. The Mets had no pitching in their farm system. So they couldn't bring people up and say, we can use these guys. They had to spend money on the rotation. Buck should go. Again, Buck had a terrible season this year. But nobody complained about Buck last year when everything was going well. So what is it? Buck is a problem. Buck hasn't had a good year this year. But again, we're going back to the managers. Again, if you think the toxic situation is the manager's fault, yet the same players are the problem in the clubhouse. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2019, 2021, and now 2023. So if you're going to continue to blame the managers and saying it's their fault, look who the players are that are the core that's been there with those 3 managers. Well, PK, so wait. Nobody likes Buck, but they loved him last year. Now, I agree. He's kind of very stubborn when it comes to veterans over rookies. I get prospects. I get that. But is Buck part of the problem this year? Absolutely. Well, Butterscotch, he's probably going to be gone. Yeah, but that's stupid, though, because Brian Snitker's not 20 years old. All right, could we not like Bruce Bochy? Look at the Rangers. Bruce Bochy's an old geezer. He's having a good season, so it's not just old age. Can we stop that? Brian Snitker has one of the best teams in baseball. He's not 20 years old. He's not 35 years old. And, for all the lovely people that want Carlos Beltran, the last thing this team needs is an inexperienced manager. Yeah, I agree. Buck's not perfect, but every button Buck pushed last year worked. This year, it's not. Again, if you're just going to go on 2 years, you had one really good season, one bad season. Well, Vogelback has been a problem. I bitched about it since the day we traded for him. No, again, it's not about Pete Alonso said so. And Salicata never blamed Pete Alonso. If you actually listen to him, he said there's things that he blamed. He blamed Lindor, he blamed Alonso, he blamed McNeil mostly. But he's not wrong. There's clearly something wrong in the clubhouse. And if it's those core players, and you can put Nimmo into the mix, if it's those core players, we've been talking about a toxic clubhouse since 2019. So go back to 2019. Who was on this team that are on the team now? Nimmo, McNeil, Alonso. So it's got to be them, right? Maybe Lindor has something to do with it as well. But who's been here for those 3 years with 3 different managers? McNeil, Nimmo, Alonso. Again, we need a scapegoat because it makes us feel better. And the only scapegoats that can actually get fired are the coaches and the GMs. So that's the first person we always run to, right? Mickey Callaway was a fool. The clubhouse became toxic at the end of the season in 2019. Stroman had a lot to do with that too, right? So we blame Mickey Callaway. Well, it's got to be Mickey Callaway's fault. Let's bring in Luis Rojas, a guy who's come up through the organization. Not a bad idea after Beltran got fired because of the scandal with the Astros. Luis Rojas, okay. Let's see what he got. Shortened season. Let's not kill him. It's a hard season to deal with. 2021, complete shit show. Mets were in first place for a little while. We all know they weren't a good team. They were scoring like 3 runs per game. They were not a very good team. The Braves took over the division, and the rest was history, right? Oh, toxic clubhouse, Lindor, Baez. It's got to be Luis Rojas. Let's bring an experienced, old, good manager in Buck Showalter. Now we're talking about a toxic clubhouse again. At some point, you got to stop blaming the manager about the clubhouse. Maybe it's actually the players that have been here the whole time. And the only people who know are the guys in the know. Like Steve Cohen, like Billy Epler, like some of the media who is always in the clubhouse and seeing the way these guys interact with each other or don't interact at all with each other after the game or before the game. Come on, guys. It's like a fraternity. They're basically a family for 6 months out of the year, 7 months out of the year, right? It's basically being in high school and you see the same people every day. And you know when people are having issues. You know when people are arguing or people are friends or are not being friends right now and they're not talking to each other. You easily see that. And when you're the media, a beat reporter who is always in the clubhouse, when you're a GM and an owner who know about the clubhouse or are in the clubhouse a lot of the times, you see that very easily. So they know. Again, they're not lost for the next 3 or 4 seasons. You're an idiot if you believe that. Because I guarantee you said that in 2021. I guarantee you said the same crap in 2021. And you probably said that for many, many seasons with the Wilpons. They are not rebuilding. This is not a rebuild. They replenished their farm system in a year and a half. Go back to 2 years ago. The Mets were 18th ranked farm system in baseball. They're going to be top 5. You know, I just don't understand. How is it a rebuild when Alonso's still here, Nimmo's still here, Lindor's still here, McNeil's still here? That is your core. They didn't trade any of those guys. Where will we get pitching? It's called free agency. It's called trade market. That actually happens during the offseason. You're looking at the rotation now. That is stupid to look at it now. You can't do nothing right now. In the offseason, I just told you, you got to listen, PK. Corbin Burnes is going to be on the trade market. Who is going to be the president of baseball operations for the New York Mets? Everybody's talking about David Stearns. Where did he come from? The Milwaukee Brewers. But PK, yes, because we banked on it in the 2022 offseason, going into 2021, going into the 2022 season, when we traded for Chris Bassett, when we signed in Max Scherzer. Come on, guys. Pay attention. You act like we didn't have one of the best rotations in baseball last year. We got them from the free agent market and the trade market. You know why? Because money talks. That's why. It's the reason why Scherzer came. It's the reason why Verlander came. Money talks. Right? The Mets weren't good after the 2021 season. Why did Scherzer come? Why did all the other free agents come? Why did Marte, Canna, Escobar? Why did those guys come? Yeah, but the Braves actually went through a rebuild. The Phillies did too. If you look at the years when the Nationals were winning divisions, the Braves were nowhere to be found. You know why? Because they were tanking. They were rebuilding their farm system. Same thing with the Phillies. After the Phillies went on their World Series runs and were a good team for a little while, they were a shit show because they were rebuilding. The fact of the matter is, the Mets rebuilt their farm system, which was the major problem, in a year and a half, based on draft and what they did in this trade deadline. Again, the third wild card team is going to have between 85 and 87 wins. They're going to be 5, 6, or 7 games over 500. That's not very good. All right, the Chicago Cubs are 5 games over 500. There's 45 games left for them. Even if they go 5 games over 500, that's 86 wins. That's what's going to get you in the playoffs. We need foreign players. I know, because Olsen, I didn't realize how foreign he was. O'Reilly. Interesting. Come on. Really? Really? That's what we're going to go on? Foreign players. Come on. The majority of the rotation is basically unforeign in the Braves rotation. The Phillies couldn't have more white guys. Come on, that's so stupid. Foreign players? Come on, guys. The Mets took PK, but you just said the Phillies, the Braves, and the Marlins. What the fuck do you think they relied on? Because last time I checked, they basically took a lot of prospects on. Basically not the Phillies. They actually bought players. So for anybody who thinks that spending money is not worth it, the Phillies spent money. But the actual Atlanta Braves that you just talked about basically built their team on prospects. Who's foreign? Who is foreign? Who is foreign on the Braves? Acuna, great. Guys, seriously. Could we be more realistic? The team that you're talking about built their team on prospects. Acuna, Albies, Riley. You want me to keep going? Harris. Basically, almost their entire rotation is based on prospects. Congratulations. He speaks 7 languages. And in 2022, the Mets spoke 2, 3 probably, 2, English and Spanish. So what was their problem? What about the San Diego Padres? They're basically the UN. How are they doing? They're only a couple of games better than the Mets. And they're probably not going to make the playoffs. Jesus Christ. I mean, come on, guys. Guys, don't talk about the rotation in August because there's always trades available and there's the free agent market. Again, do a little bit of homework because people like to talk and not do homework. They like to say nonsense and not do their homework. Look at the teams in the National League that are in the playoffs and look at the teams in the wild card right now. Don't look at the wild card teams. Go from the Phillies all the way down. Let me know how good any of those rotations are. They're not very good. You need quality starters because the Mets had one of the best rotations in baseball last year, and it got them Ugats last year. This year, you had Verlander and Scherzer. A lot of people thought pretty damn good 1 and 2. You got the Cy Young, and everybody thought Scherzer was going to be better than he is, right? He's pitching well for the Rangers now. It's not always just about the rotation anymore. This is not 1975. Shoot, there's not even the 90s anymore. You need quality starts. You need quality pitchers. Guys that go out there every day and give you a chance to win. Yeah, you might need that one guy that you know every time you go out there, you got the best chance to win. Look, okay, PK, please go away. You're talking about the best player in baseball. Yeah, okay, great for Max. And Max has the biggest mouth out of everybody. And if you heard Max, but I guarantee him, Game, you did not listen to the podcast that he was on with AJ Przinsky. You know what he said? He actually did a complete 180 and said, oh, the Mets are a great franchise. They're a good organization, great ownership. They never lied to me. If you listen to Max Scherzer prior to that podcast, he acted like the Mets weren't going to be ready until 2030. Committee, you just said it. I wasn't going to bring it up. But that's how stupid. People don't actually do their homework. I knew who he pitched against, but nobody cared to want to care about that. Look at Scherzer, 9 strikeouts. He pitched 6 innings. Look how good he was. Oh, he had in the second start. Look how good he was. He pitched against the White Sox and the A's. The White Sox that traded people away and the A's who are a dumpster fire. But nobody wanted to bring that up. You see, that's how it works. Let me see him pitch well against a good team. Because every time we needed him, right? I was in Boston when the Mets actually still had a chance of making a run. And if Scherzer would have won that game and pitched well, the Mets would have took 2 out of 3. My belief is the Mets made their decision for the deadline because of that Boston series. That's just my opinion. So, guys, with that said, enjoy the baseball game for whatever it's worth. You got Nimmo and Lindor back in the lineup. That's good to see. Their injuries are not that bad, thank God. With that said, we'll see if the Mets can try to get a split, I guess. Let's just see. Again, because Max said so. Max, right? People didn't want to believe Max when he said sweat and rosin, but now you want to believe him. Funny how that works. Yeah, easy. I just been busy the last 2 weeks. Work. I've been working a ton. So I'm not gonna promise doing a live stream tomorrow. I want to. Tomorrow's my birthday, as I said. So I don't know what I'm gonna be doing, or maybe I don't know what the hell I'm doing, to be honest. Who knows? I really didn't plan much because I've been working so much, and if you basically, at a certain age, it's like it's another year. I'm just getting older. Less hair because of the Mets, and my body aches when I wake up because I'm getting older. That's basically it. So with that said, guys, have a good night. Take a deep breath before you look at just anything. Take the emotion out of it and realize on August 12th, you can't really determine what this team is going to look like in February. It's almost impossible to do. So with that said, have a good night. As always, Met fans, let's go Mets. I'll see you next time, guys. Hopefully my birthday ends up being a lot better than what the Mets are right now. Have a good night, guys. Let's go Mets.